the military side of the situation in the war today. Now, there's been quite a lot of other things going on, and the first thing to say is that Prime Minister Mishustin of Russia, who has been conducting his tour of China, has now had a meeting with President Xi Jinping of China in Moscow. The Chinese have not yet provided a complete readout, nor, by the way, have the Russians. But the Financial Times has provided a report, at least, and it says Xi Jinping has called for China and Russia to deepen trade, economic and energy ties as the Chinese leader shrugs off Western's pressure to reduce support for Vladimir Putin despite the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The Chinese president, who met Russian Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin in Beijing on Wednesday, reaffirmed his support for Moscow's core interests and said Beijing was willing to expand new growth points in bilateral cooperation with Russia, according to China's foreign ministry. Mishustin told Xi that Russia and China stand together against the attempts of the collective West to maintain global dominance, to use illegal sanctions to impose their will on independent states, according to Interfax. Interfax is an independent Russian news agency. And we also have an extensive report about Mishustin's visit in Global Times, and it confirms that China-Russia trade will hit $200 billion this year. And that is a very big increase. It, as I said, makes Russian-Chinese trade, for the first time, a significant part of China's total trade. And it seems to be, this process seems to be accelerating. And as I said in my previous program, it is likely that $200 billion process will figure will be exceeded this year. And Chinese experts have said that China and Russia are moving closer on economic cooperation, should not be associated with the ongoing Ukraine crisis, nor should be seen as China skewing towards certain party, calling such interpretation narrow-minded. They note that China has the right to choose who to work with as long as the collaboration does not violate international law norms, and such a choice won't be disturbed by noise from any third party. So the Americans might apply noise and criticism, but Chinese-Russian trade is going to continue to develop. Well, while Mishustin has been in China, Dmitry Medvedev, deputy chair of Russia's Security Council, the man in overall charge of Russia's defense industries, its military-industrial complex, he has been touring Southeast Asia. And he's recently been in Hanoi, in Vietnam, where he's met with the Vietnamese leadership. And apparently the Vietnamese and the Russians reaffirmed their long friendship with each other, which of course was sealed during the period of the Indochina Wars of the 1950s and 60s and 70s, and which has never gone away at any time since. So Medvedev has been building more links in Hanoi, even as Mishustin tours China. So we've had things like this taking place. And there have been other things of a similar nature going on in other places too. So, for example, the admiral of the Russian Navy, the chief of the Russian Navy, is now currently on a trip to Iran. And we have a report about this from the Russian Defense Ministry. Russian Navy Commander-in-Chief Admiral Nikolai Yevmenov pays official visits to Iran, and there's photographs of him with Iranian naval officers, and we read that during the meeting, naval cooperation and the exchange of experience between the two countries' navies was discussed. And I can't help but think that it wasn't just discussed. I wonder whether before very long we'll be seeing the Iranians placing orders for Russian equipment and Russian-built ships. But anyway, that's no doubt all pending in the future. So we have quite a lot of diplomatic activity. Note that it is all coming from the Russian side. Now, the Russians, for their part, have commented on some of these proposals to sort of freeze the conflict. And the Russians, these are comments which have been made now from Washington. I discussed this article in Politico. There seems to be an emerging consensus that is going to be before very long. The objective that the United States, or at least the administration, is going to be seeking, the British, as shown by Sunak's comments in the House of Commons a day or so ago, aren't happy, but this does seem to be what the British now want to do. But, rather, the Americans want to do, that they want to freeze the conflict. But the Russians are pouring increasing amounts of cold water on this idea. Lavrov has already spoken out against it, and now we've had comments from Peskov, Putin's spokesman. And Peskov has said Russia considers only the following opportunity of ending the special military operation. It secures Russia's interest and achieves Russia's goals, either in the course of the special military operation or by other available means. In other words, a diplomatic settlement that fulfills all of the Russian demands made both at the start of the conflict and, by the way, its underlying security concerns, a reformatting of the security architecture in Europe. And Peskov apparently said that it was too early to say which one of the proposed settlement roadmaps would be preferable to Russia. He said that it's too early to speak about it. No prerequisites for a peace process are yet in place, evidently, and the special military operation continues. And he rather facetiously said that when people in the West say that they don't want the conflict to become a frozen one, he said that Russia is in solidarity with that sentiment. In other words, in solidarity with people like Scholz, who has also said it, and of course Sunak, which of course, he's teasing. So the Russians are not going to go for the frozen conflict idea. If anybody in Washington hopes they will, I'm confident that they will be disillusioned, and the reports, the glimmers of reports we're getting from the meeting between Xi Jinping and Mishustin, they all point in the same direction, that the Chinese too are not looking to freeze the conflict. They too want a sustained